Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit, and had a little snafu with the camera there, but I'm in the 3.5 Monster Manual, and we're on part 2 of the Wight. Oops, if I can get to it. There it is. So I had started painting him. He's base coated in black, and then I started dry brushing him down with gray, and that's where I'm at right now. So I actually turned off my camera, and I decided instead of trying to make it in like weird parts, I would just come around here and keep working. You didn't miss much. He's black, and then pavement, and now this. Okay. I'm going to do, this is a lighter gray called Elephant Gray. And this should give us some variation in tone for the next step, I'm hoping. Yeah. There we go. Start to see a little detail pop there. Pop, 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 pop. That was lame, I know. That hair you can see that we made with the hot glue, it's crappy and good. That's what we want, crappy and good. We want this guy to look used and beat up and pale, and we want all his stuff, we want all his clothes and stuff to look faded and crappy. That's why this hobgoblin ended up being such a good fix for this, because everything's jagged and torn. If you look here, you can see. That's kind of what I wanted. I'm going to lighten up that cape a little bit. I don't know what color ultimately it's going to be. Okay, now we're going to go to a much lighter color, and then we're going to come in with some browns and stuff. So this much lighter color is called Country Gray, and you're going to have to be careful with this. You want to test this on the edge of the base or something before you really get into it too big, because this is going to be such a big difference in color. Well, you'll see in a second. See, it's really super light. I'm going to hit the edge of my base and make sure I don't have too much paint, and I feel like I have just the right amount. So I'm going to hit them again and focus on outer areas. And the edges of the cape. And I'll come back around and hit his face again. Okay. Now I'm going to do one last coat. Leaving that in my brush, I'm going to create my lightest gray by just getting a dab of white. And I'm going to look for an area where I've been mixing. It's still damp, so it's not a pure white and it's a light gray. And I'm going to come over here and take almost all that off and get real dry. I'm going to come up here and touch around on the face a little bit, just on the hands and hair. And the areas that have more significant detail that I want to catch. Now let's switch to a lighter color for the face and stuff. But we're going to have to switch to a smaller brush because we don't want to paint everything like that. So I'm going to get a soft plastic bristle brush. I'm going to get that. I'm going to start with a bluish color. Something very light. I have a color called sky blue here, and it's like a bluish blue-gray maybe. And I'm going to get a tiny dab of that, get it all in the brush, and wipe a lot of that off. And I don't want it to be dry. And I'm going to get in here, and I'm going to capture some of his face with that. In any of the areas that it might be flesh, like I'm going to pretend like that glove is ripped off and have his hand exposed there, and on the other hand I'll just leave his glove and paint it brown or something. So you want to get your blue and touch your flesh and give it a blue undertone, bluish undertone like that. Then you want to get a white and do the same thing. First we're going to hit this with the air gun. We're going to significantly lighten up his face and hand. Now, if any of you are familiar with the Misfits, I'm thinking about doing like that Jerry only dark black around the eyes thing. But I don't know yet. All right, we're gonna play the Browns game. We're starting with a medium brown called melted chocolate, and we're gonna get a piece of foam to play on. You can use tape or foam or whatever, anything that's not gonna absorb, moisture. And I'm getting a thin brush. I'm gonna get a size 1 brush for this. I'm gonna get a little bit of water in my brush, and this is just paint water, my rinse water here. I'm gonna get my brown. I'm gonna get it real thin, like that. And I'm going to come in and start on his pants. And the secret here is you don't need perfect coverage on this. It can be kind of thin and terrible. And in some of these areas that we're going to leave a little bit dark, that'll pay off. He's got really shiny butt cheeks. We're going to make them brown. Okay. And the desaturation of this color by thinning it out significantly is going to dry and make it look dingy and faded. Now we're going to use that same spot, and we're just going to get more water and a little more paint than we had before. Okay, it's going to be a little thicker this time, about like that. There we go. And then we're going to come up here and hit this whole thing that wraps around his neck with that real carefully. We don't want to get it on his flesh or in his hair. If we get it on his arms, it'll be okay. We're going to come over here, and we're going to start dragging that real wet brown onto his cloak. And then we're going to come back with a dry brush of some gray and lighter brown on this, okay? So this is not the final color. It's going to be, that'll be a little too bright for what I'm trying to capture here. So just keep getting that. And if you need to make some more, make some more. I probably didn't make enough on my first pass through. So I'm going to get a little more water. Some more paint. And continue about my business. Now, when you paint a lot, like I do paint a lot. I paint every day, at least, my video. And lately I've been painting stuff off camera to, remind myself why I enjoy what I do. Because I don't really put the effort into some of these paint jobs because I get into like weird situations or have to fix things. And it creates problems for me where I don't enjoy it because I didn't get the product I could have gotten and stuff. I try to do stuff fast. I always have. But for God's sake, when I make a mistake, to try to fit it into a format of how long a video is, sometimes, you gotta rush. So sometimes, even if I'm in a hurry, and I realize, if I was making something for the table for myself, normally, I would just, take a break, come back to it or whatever. But when you're doing videos, you feel like you're rushed to kind of do other than that. All right, so I'm going to get that. I'm going to put this away. I'm going to get a little bit of an orange color. This is called chestnut. I'm going to get some water here. I'm going to grab a little bit of that chestnut. And I'm going to turn this into a different tone. I'm going to get a little more water. See that? It's real thin. I'm going to hit his shirt with that. And I'm not hitting every single spot on this. I am going to be intentionally missing some spots. And you'll see how that turns out. Okay. Let's get back in here. And I don't care if I hit every spot, like I said. I'm missing some spots here and there. And you'll see in a second how that helps us. Alright, so before we do anything else, let's get it on all the edges and stuff here. Before we do anything else, let's dry him off. I'm rinsing off my brush. I'm going to grab the +2 hot air gun of burning. Set this brush up there. Hope it doesn't fall. Now you can see right there, I missed a whole portion of his front of his shirt there. And that happens sometimes. So thank God we had that paint set off to the side. We can just get in there real quick, hit that, and do not do a great job. Just hit it. And we'll dry that off too. So if you want to desaturate blues and stuff, you have to start with a very dark blue. But if you want to desaturate browns, reds, and oranges, you can play with different levels of that. But desaturating blues to do this effect and make it look like kind of like old and faded, you got to do dark blue and fade it down. Bright blues just don't look faded enough. They just look like very thin, bad paint coats. All right, so now we're going to get a color. We're going to get a piece of cardboard here. And we're going to get a color that we can do a little bit of lightening on those. And so we want to get like a beige or something. So I have this territorial beige. And I'm just going to get a tiny drop of this down. But way more than I wanted. And I'm going to mix that with some light gray. I'm using elephant gray for mine. Okay. And then you want to get something you can do some dry brushing with. Something small that you have a little bit of control with. And you want to catch a tone that's still brown, but starting to look gray. It's right in that almost gray, but I'm not quite gray zone. There you go. Something like that. Something muddy and gross. You want to get a lot of that off your brush for sure. Okay. You just want to catch the areas that matter. But you don't want to go overboard or you're going to destroy that faded look completely. So you want to kind of, and underneath here, you don't need to put a lot of effort underneath. No one's going to really see under there as much, you wouldn't think. I'm catching some decent detail and making him look ratty and faded. So we have a belt, a pouch, some boots, some gloves, and his hair to do. So let's start with the hair. So for the hair, I'm going to get a gray. I'm going to get this dark blue gray. I'm going to get my piece of foam back out. I'm going to get some water. And some of that gray. A little bit more water. That's too much water. All right, I'm going to take that gray. I'm going to make that real thin. Then I'm going to hit all the hair. Get real thin blue gray, dark blue gray. Okay. Now I'm going to mix that dark blue gray and this brown together and make something for his boots. something dingy and horrible. And then I'm just going to half-ass paint those. I'm not even going to put effort into it. I'm just going to get it on there and leave it be. Now for the bag, I'm going to get a little bit more of that and a little bit more of that. And I'm going to make a lighter tone. I'm going to hit that with that. I'm going to hit that string lightly, the belt. Come all the way around his back with the belt. Be careful. Try not to get it anywhere you don't want it. I'm going to get a little bit more of that gray. And a little tone of brown to that. Make something a little darker. Just like that. And I'm going to do his gloves. And I'm really, really being sloppy on the gloves. Okay. Nice. Something like that. Uh-oh, Mrs. Doom's yelling. Somebody messed up. Rinsing out my brush, setting this stuff off to the side. We're going to have one more coat to do with some white, and we're going to do some light gray in the hair. And then we're going to do some, like a brown dry brush on everything but the skin. Okay, so in my estimation, grave dirt is probably pretty dark. So I'm going to get kind of a bigger brush. I'm going to get a dark brown. I'm going to mix a dark gray with it. I'm using pavement. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure my brush is damp. I'm going to get some pavement, and I'm going to half-ass paint this tombstone. And I say half-ass because we're going to be coming over and playing with that tombstone again in a minute. Then I'm going to get this and this, and I'm going to make my grave dirt base color. I need to make a good bit of this because it's going to be a thick coat. You just want to get it in there. And if you don't get it perfect or in every single spot, man, I don't think it's going to affect this too much. Okay. Sweet. Drag it up around that tombstone some. Get it up around his feet. Maybe get a little bit of it on his feet as if he's been trekking through the grave dirt and it's on his boots a little bit. So to simulate that, I'm going to come up underneath and paint the bottoms of his boots and just let my brush go around the edges a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to get that same color, and I'm going to wipe it real thin so there's barely any on my brush. And then I'm just going to tap it in some areas on him that I think it would look okay before this last dry brush. And you can put it on any color and on any part, except for don't do it to his flesh. And you don't want to do it real thick. You want it to be sort of something that it dries almost immediately with the brush or with the gun. Okay. Perhaps this was once a noble. Small brush, something that you can dry brush with, just like this. We're going to get a medium gray, probably the same medium gray I used earlier, that pewter, and that's what I grabbed. Perfect. Okay, we're going to do some light drags on that stone. Okay. And then I'm going to use that same gray. Grab a couple spots on his hair. Nothing too fancy. This granite has the slightest little bit of bluish to it. It's like a cooler gray. I'm just going to grab a little bit of that too. First thing I'm going to do with that is get it almost all off my brush. And I'm mixing it in this brown over here, and I'm just kind of reigniting that brown and getting it a little smushy. Then I'm going to touch the hair in a couple spots just to show some of the detail, the effort we put into making the hair strands. Just like that. Then I'm going to come up here and do the top of the tombstone pretty decent with it. Lighten that up, and I'm going to hit the corners in the front. And then I'm kind of done with that. You could come in, you could do a little bit like where the dirt spots were. You could hit that a little bit, but I don't think it adds too much to your paint job at this point. And I would kind of leave those dirt spots alone if you know. All right. So very brown. Probably should have done a blue on the shirt or something. Okay, we're going to use the same brush now. We're going to get that brown we had earlier that we mixed with gray. That real light, it was like the, the territorial beige mixed with the granite, the elephant gray. We're going to get that color again, and we're going to wipe a lot of that off our brush. There's hardly anything left. And then we're going to come back, and where our dirt is, we're going to hit that. And then anything that looks like it's sticking out good that could use it, we're going to hit with that too. Like his shoulders are pretty defined. We're going to hit those. His boots are a little dark right there, and there's some good texture. We're going to hit that. His pouch. Maybe that little rip in his shirt there. Come around the cloak where there's holes. Just make those a little more noticeable with that. Do the back of the cape where it's tattered. Come around on the edges of the cloak. Lighten those up. The highest fabric is going to be the lightest. And we're going to call that a win. So I'm not happy with the lack of color. So I have a couple options. One, I can just accept it. Two, I can darken up the base in some ways to make it pop. Or three, I can make a contrast on him somewhere significant. I think that the way to do anything I want to do at this point is to get a dark blue. This is called Admiral Blue. I'm going to get that. I'm going to get a little more of my water. Now, you don't want to be crazy with this step, okay? Get your dark blue and get it really, really wet like that, okay? There's almost no blue and mostly water. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit these pants. I'm going to be very easy, and I'm going to spread it around more than I am going to paint. Okay. There we go. So you can see that these might have started out as blue pants at some point in history, but they're definitely not so blue anymore. And again, I'm just pulling it around to get coverage. I'm not really trying to paint the pants. Okay. And that gives them a little bit of subtle color. You could probably do something similar with that with other parts of them if you really wanted to get into it. I don't. As far as how his belt buckle is, I was thinking about hitting that with metal. So I don't want to actually paint it nicely, so I'm just going to get something to make it shiny right here. The tiniest little bit of metallic. And I'm going to get that, and then I'm going to wipe a lot of that off to where it's pretty dry. And then I'm just going to drag that across the edges briefly and frame that out. And then I'm going to wash my brush, and we'll do Wight. We'll do his eyes and his mouth, and we'll be done. So for my white that we talked about, I'm going to get this brush one last time. I'm going to get my paint. My brush is moist. I'm going to get my paint, and I'm going to smooth it out. And I'm going to paint kind of like the cheeks, the nose, the chin a little bit, and in the middle of the forehead. I don't have much paint left on my brush here. Then we're going to come across and catch those fingers and make them a little brighter. We're going to grab that little bit on the thumb there and pull it onto his hand just to make that pop a little better. I told you I want to do some Teenagers from Mars. Misfitsy kind of look. But to use a pure black at this point would be suicide. So what I'm going to do around his eyes is I'm going to get a little bit of that dark gray. I'm going to water it down a good bit. I'm going to drag my brush around so I don't have too much. And then I'm going to touch around the eyes. Like that. And I'm going to get a little piece of toilet paper. And dab those. Then I might need to hit it again, and I do. So I'm going to get my black, or my gray, and my wet. There we go. It's a little bit silly, and the eyes are a little bit big. I hit the mouth real fine with that. Okay. Now he can either be Ghostface or he could be a misfit. But we're not done. All right, Doom, what do we do next? Well, you get your hot air gun and you hit his face. You get a fractional brush in an off-white color that'll not be perfect with his eyes. This is Mummy Robes. You could have used antique white or anything that had, you know, linen, any of those kind of colors that you have. I just grabbed that because it's close and I didn't want to dig. You're going to get You're going to do the eyes, and then you're going to clean up his face a little bit with that same color. Get something like that going. You came along for the ride. Yeah, you can't come aside. Oh my gosh. Hollywood Babylon is like my favorite Misfits song. It's going to be in my head all night. Okay. So for our pupils and irises, we're just going to do one red dot. Just to give him that, like, oh. And then across his mouth, right where that black is, a little bit of red. All right. We're almost done. Sweet. Right on schedule. I talked about some of the things you could do to make the color look a little less drab. And one of the things you can do is, I do this a lot, and it's just like a technique that's not super secret or anything, is I make the outline of the base black, and it makes it pop. And it creates a big enough contrast. And it kind of creates the end to where this guy's story is told too, which is neat. I'm not having a tobacco product or vaping. That is my breath, my dudes. It like dropped like 10 degrees in here just now. Look at that. It's going to be sharp. And then we're going to get all the smooth spots where there's no texture, or even if there's a little bit of texture. And we're going to do a crisp outline following that bump of the terrain. Real carefully, real thin and smooth and nice. We don't want bumps and crap in there. Real nice and follow. If you need to add a little water, this is a good time to do it. My brush was fairly damp and this paint's kind of wet, so it's doing what I want. I don't know if I ever told you guys, I know a lady that was born in a toilet. Good story. The lady was born in a commode. Means she was born in shit mode. It's a true story, too. I would tell you who it is, but, you know, the wrong person found out. Come back to me and people would know that I'm the one that told the story. And a lot of people don't know about it. It's like a super secret that somebody was born on the shitter. It's like a super big secret. Man, I wish I could tell everybody, but I know none of y'all know who it is. But if some person, the wrong person, found out about it and they figured out, I'd be in a lot of trouble. All right, so there's my Wight. You don't need any flocking on that. Graveyards, you know, a bright green might not be ideal. If you had a dark, like dingy brown or green you could use, and I do, I guess, but it's not what I want to do. Tell your own story with your base. All right, so I'm just going to hit this dude with a clear coat. And then take them upstairs and put them on the spinner and do a short about running these awesome Wights. Man, I really like the way his face turned out. It's kind of cartoony, but I love it. So anyways, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, leave a comment. Go to the website, buy some miniatures, not these miniatures, real Dungeon Swag miniatures. And join our Discord. Show us what you're crafting, what you're painting, what you're working on. We got people on there making weapons, doing needlepoint, doing crocheting, doing painting of non-miniatures. We got all kind of different stuff besides training miniatures. Come on there and show us what stuff you make. We'd love to see it. Hey, we even got a dude who's mixing those little mica powders into glow-in-the-dark paint, or black light paint, and that is freaking awesome, and I'm so tempted to buy the shit to do it. So, see you next time. Thanks for watching.